All right, welcome back. I'm here with Michael Beygelman, founder and CEO of Claro Analytics. Michael, how are you doing there in New Hampshire, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. We have about a foot of snow and it's still coming. Notice I'm wearing my Patagonia just like
Yeah,
you are.
yeah, we're matching. I venture to say it's a little bit cooler there than here, so
Just a wee bit, right? But the
just a
dog
wee
doesn't even want to go to the bathroom. We have to kick him out.
bit. Hey, you've been, chopping wood, as I like to say, on this for quite a number of years, and in HR in general. And so, I really am a fan of what you've been able to achieve in this space, and you really hit it out of the park in London a year and a half ago. So, without further ado, I'll get out of your way, and you do your thing, and then we'll have a quick chat at the end. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Hi, everyone. Hope all's well with everyone. You're staying safe. Happy holidays to everyone. It's been a crazy year. In some respects, it feels like it flew by. In some respects, it feels like it took 10 years. Um, So anyway, thanks for joining me. A quick intro. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Claro. Our mission is essentially to organize all the world's workforce-related information and to make it easily accessible so that companies can make more strategic decisions about talent. Somebody called us the Bloomberg of human capital recently, and it kind of stuck, so we've been going with that. So if you need to talk to your friends about what is Claro, you could just say, oh, they're basically like Bloomberg, but for human capital. So kind of stuck. I wanted to quickly reflect on what's transpired in the last year. We're kind of seeing we're in the wake of what I would call social and economic drivers that are currently reshaping the world of work. And there's some things that really stick out that transpired throughout the year. Like for example, today, diversity, equity, inclusion are integral to every conversation about talent. Many companies are tying executive pay to various KPIs and metrics. Let's see, the post-pandemic workforce has definitely evolved, and this also interestingly ties back to diversity and inclusion, wherein now you could really have workers anywhere. So I think that the barriers to hiring people should hopefully be a lot less, even though how we get work done has really changed. Hopefully, hiring people should be easier because there are less constraints today around where the talent is. And that kind of like dovetails into the next topic where talent location strategies have kind of taken center stage. And there's a couple of reasons for this. This is both from a social perspective and an economic perspective, because many companies are saying that, look, if we have skill scarcity and we need to hire talent, why do we want to compete for that talent in this one metropolitan area where you have wage inflation, et cetera, where we could potentially look at the talent in other metropolitan areas? And companies are looking for ways to align pay to talent supply and demand. So in terms of like the world of work, things have really like evolved. And I think some of the things that have transpired in 2020, they're kind of here to stay. Maybe not the way they were in March, April, May, but I think that we're kind of redefining and sort of creating this new normal. People analytics solutions are really kind of blossoming during this time. Red Thread Research recently put this out. You could find this on their website. They did a really nice piece, kind of like developing a landscape for people analytics solutions. And it's great to see that the space is blossoming. There's something like 120 vendors. It looks like the space is growing 30-40% year over year. And it's very difficult to have any conversation today with HR executives without talking about KPIs, metrics, talent, intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. So it's great to see that the space is growing and evolving. We're very blessed. We're positioned as a leader in this space. We've had some research written about us specifically. One piece that was put out by 441 Research talked about how we have like a really cool value proposition and how we productize available workforce information and how we overlay that with a visualization front end and how we're positioned to do really well as people analytics and labor market intelligence becomes more important over the next couple of years. And outside of building pretty cool tech, we have a great culture. We kind of pride ourselves on bringing transparency to social issues. If you follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc., it would be hard for us to go through a week without posting something interesting, either around companies that hire diverse people or female representation in the workforce, or something about military veterans, etc. We're really excited to bring transparency to social issues, and you see us talk about this in social media a lot. Something that's really a core value of ours. To kind of like dive deeper now, let's talk about some examples of labor market intelligence use cases. This kind of term, labor market intelligence, in itself is relatively new. We used to call it external market data. External meaning people analytics that didn't come from like a workday, that kind of thing, right? Where information that came from outside of the organization versus information about our existing employees. And the use cases, to be honest, are all over the place. It was even hard for me to kind of create 2 or 3 towers of use cases to bring some semblance to it, because each company kind of has their own strategy around how to use labor market intel. In general terms, they basically fall into kind of like 3 buckets. This kind of bucket of like what we call talent demand. Demand is actually very important because today you have to compete with others in a very different way for the talent rather than how you competed with them, let's say, a year ago, right? So today it's really important to know like who is hiring and where are they hiring. This kind of ties back to the talent location strategy, right? That if you could have talent anywhere, where should you have talent? So it's key to know that if you decide you want to hire people in Des Moines, Iowa, for example, who else is hiring in Des Moines, Iowa? And are they direct competitors, indirect competitors? How many people are they hiring? Things like how much are they paying? There's been recently a lot of interesting talk about specific skills and how expensive they are, where the average wage for a skill in a certain market may be, $140,000 a year versus in another market, maybe $90,000 a year, right? So companies want to know, what are my competitors paying for these comparable skill sets in those markets? And then there's this what we call supply demand planning concept, where you look at both the data points and you try to figure out like what is the optimal scenario where there's a good imbalance of talent supply and demand in a market, and where that market also has wages that are below other markets, right? These kind of like complex scenarios. And then there's this kind of same kind of problem statement applied to diversity and inclusion, right? I did a webinar earlier in the day on diversity recruiting, and we talk about being deliberate and having a sense of purpose, that you can't just put diversity in front of sourcing strategy and now have a diversity sourcing strategy. There has to be deliberate steps taken to help do diversity recruiting. And one of the areas that we identified was diversity talent market mapping. How do companies stack up against their competitors along, geography, skills, gender, et cetera, et cetera. This is really, really, really critical to companies today. I cannot overstate this. And it's really important to understand how others are doing to know how well you're doing, because in order to measure something, you need to have some referenceable standard. And then the third one is leveraging labor market intelligence to potentially identify areas of talent risk. And could we hire faster? Could we hire better? Could we retain better, et cetera? So I would compartmentalize the myriad labor market intelligence use cases kind of in these 3 big towers where we see clients use Claro, for example, and other products may be different. And on this topic, people ask sometimes, like, who actually uses this? I know it sounds really interesting because, like, it feels like you're asking an offensive question, but we're not offended. It's a real question that should be asked: who potentially uses products like this at a company? And there's basically like what I would call 4 user groups if you want to logically structure those user groups. The first user group is kind of this internal HR executive people analytics team. And how each user group uses it is very different. These tie back to some of the use cases we discussed earlier. This could be around D&I talent market mapping, or competitive benchmarking, or supply and demand planning, or forecasting employee attrition. So this kind of user group tends to use those aspects of the software. Then you have like sometimes people do this in a shared service or a center of excellence, COE, where you may have like a single person or a small team. This is not uncommon. This is where you would have experts trained in labor market intelligence tools, because even though we think our tool is easy and some of our peers think that our tools are easy as well, they're easy to pick up and click, but you really have to kind of know what you're doing to get actionable insights. So sometimes companies set up like a shared service, right, where they have a team that responds to business needs. The third user group is really kind of transactional, to be honest, and it depends on the business that you're in. About 65 or so percent, 70% of our clients are direct users of Claro, and about a third or so are staffing companies and RPOs, and they have slightly different use cases. But generally speaking, most of our clients deploy this kind of product to frontline people that are using it, because, for example, doing a hiring manager intake call with labor market data is a much better intake call than, the hiring manager says, oh, I need to hire 12 phlebotomists in Des Moines, Iowa, and then, there's like crickets because you have no idea where to start, right? So managing stakeholder expectations, doing frontline sourcing, top of funnel generation, all using like current real-time information is super valuable. So this is the third user group. And the fourth user group is actually not a group at all. It's completely automated. This is where you have system-to-system interaction, where some of our clients have configured API access to Claro, and they've predefined the information that they want. And then so this quote-unquote user group is actually another system that's pulling information from Claro and rendering it in their product. One of our clients did something like this in a product called Domo. You may be familiar with that. So we have the dashboard, the visualization tools that connect to Claro via API. Another one of our clients did this in Power BI. We have connections to products like Avature for the frontline recruiting and sourcing. So the API kind of user group is something that we see more and more as companies look to sort of automate the process. So these are kind of the users that within an organization. Hopefully this is helpful. And where we feel we differentiate, and I kind of want it to be tangible. One is our product is real time. We don't buy data. We don't get government data. We don't use household surveys. We don't do things of that nature. It's not how our product works. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that those products tend to have information that's dated. It's interesting, but it's dated. We pride ourselves in being real time. Our technology is like Bloomberg for human capital. It's real time information that's essentially happening. So, for example, our salary insights, you're not getting like household salary data from 2019. You're getting what the salary looks like today, what people are paying now. So that's kind of like really interesting. And the other bit is that it's global. I think that there's a lot of really good solutions that are U.S. centric because we have a lot of access to information. Once you get outside the U.S., it becomes more difficult. And this is kind of like another area where we shine just because how we built our technology. It's different than some of the other platforms. And then we have some unique IP. We have some patents filed on tools like job seeking sonar, etc. This is sort of one of the first features we built 5 years ago. This is a unique feature that tells you who's passively looking for work. Very useful for like attrition modeling or to do reactive recruiting. So those are kind of some of the things that we pride ourselves on. And in case our internet connection died and I wasn't happy to show you the product, I wanted to include some screenshots. We offer Claro two ways. Like I said, we offer it as a web-based application, which I'm going to show you in a moment. And we also offer it as an API. And we have clients that either do one, the other, and some do both. So let me jump out of this, and then I'm going to jump into a web browser. Sorry about that. And for the next 10 minutes, I'll give you a brief overview of Claro. I want to make sure that I don't go down a rabbit hole because any analytics application is very intellectually curious. This is what our web-based product looks like. I'm going to zoom out and show you how cool it is to interact with our application. You get like this little hand and you can move. This map shows you like the map of talent, and the bubble sizes represent, the number of talent. or the number of people, you could zoom in, infinitely, and drill down and drill down and drill down. It's really, really cool. And then when you actually move this, you're actually creating a new geographic search. So we've kind of reinvented how one would interact with information. I've been a really big fan of what I call human to computer interaction and simplifying that to help people extract relevant information from data to make decisions. So this is what our interface looks like. We think it's relatively intuitive, not a lot of bright colors. As you notice, there's not even a navigation at the top. Our entire product is actually one page, and we're kind of really proud of that in terms of ease of use. And you basically use it to find information. So let's look at one of the use cases we discussed. Let's look at let's look at the talent side. You could say things like, let's look at the U.S. since, I suspect most people on this call are from the U.S. So let's look at that. And you could say, show me all the people that, work for Facebook. And, show me everybody that does Java. And this is like very basic. This level of functionality to learn, as you could tell, doesn't take much. In order to become very proficient at Claro, I would say probably, need 8 to 10 hours. But to start using it, it's a couple of minutes. And then you can get basic information like where did the Java developers that work at Facebook go to school? You could do it by percentages, by numbers. If you want to put this in a presentation, you can hit this PNG. It'll export this really nice graphic for you that you could copy and paste. And oh, by the way, here, if you're a geek, you could actually geek out. We even provide you CSV exports of latitude and longitude. So our product is really easy to use. If you didn't want to do an API connection, but you still wanted to use like a Tableau or whatever is your favorite application, everything I'm showing you here today, you could really easily export right out of the system. So that's education. You could say like, show me what other skills people have. So it's really kind of neat. You could say, show me where the people are geographically. So it's really kind of interesting stuff. And then we also offer you pie charts. You could say like what languages do people speak. And again, I'm only showing you very basic things. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. We have like 7 or 8 minutes left. And then we have some really unique features, like for example, around gender. You could say, show me the gender distribution, male, female. We know that female women are underrepresented in STEM. You could see at Facebook, only 20% of their Java developers are women. So that's really interesting. And then we also have diversity functionality. We've built in something that's called the Mansfield rule. Mansfield rule has some metrics that are benchmarks that like you could compare against. And in this instance, you see that 41% of the Java developers there are diverse, and according to the Mansfield, that would be compliant because the Mansfield rule states that at least 30% of your employees should be diverse. So you get these really kind of cool things like that. Of course, where we also pride ourselves is you could go from macro all the way down to micro. We give you these Google-style results. You could start out at a very high level, heat maps, bar charts, et cetera, and you could drill down all the way to the individual. They're Google-esque style results on purpose. Because we want to make sure that our technology is GDPR compliant, which it is. About half of our clients are international. So we give you links where you can go and check out the people's social profiles. Some of them may have like LinkedIn profiles, Facebook profiles, etc. And you can find all that information here. We give you these kind of links. Some of the developers will have GitHub profiles, et cetera, et cetera. So think about this section as almost like your Google for people kind of results. Yeah. So one of the things that we do is we go from a very high level and you can drill all the way down. This is the very, very basic functionality of Claro. There are some more advanced and like kind of super interesting use cases. Like for example, right now logistics, manufacturing are really important. Let's look at who's hiring dock workers. Notice this is a more complex search. Now we're talking about demand for talent, right? And there's a lot of demand for dock workers, as you can imagine. Like everything has to get shipped in a pandemic world, right? So you could see who's hiring dock workers. You could see where they're hiring dock workers. And the system is very flexible that you could use this for professional skill sets, for hourly, it doesn't discriminate whatsoever. You could see what people are paying. And this is really important too, because if you're thinking about like going into specific markets, you want to think about like what are the wage distributions in that market, right? Because you want to be competitive. So you can immediately see who's hiring, where they're hiring, how much they're paying. And then there's some super advanced use cases that are very cool. You could literally do real-time supply and demand planning. You could say, show me all the people that are dock workers or have done dock work before, and show me everybody that's hiring. And you get this kind of supply and demand heat map. And what's really interesting is you could see like there's demand for dock workers in certain markets where there's just no talent whatsoever, right? And these markets are going to be difficult to hire. So you can then actually drill down and look at, at a core-based statistical area, which markets have, a large discrepancy, if you would, between available talent. And it looks like this is a good market where there's like a lot more people, there are jobs, almost like a 5-to-1 ratio. And this is essentially what you want to look for in terms of like labor market imbalance when you're thinking about doing this kind of thing. So this is the use case around talent supply and demand planning. This is one of the more prevalent use cases. And sometimes you could uncover some really interesting things. Like one of the things we were looking at recently is cloud architects. And we were looking at demand for cloud architects and the supply for cloud architects in certain markets. And like, here's a perfect example, right? Notice in the Washington, D.C. area, there are actually more jobs than people. So you definitely don't want to hire people in this market with this specific skill set. You want to go into other markets. And again, this is real time. So you get to see this now, not how it was 2 or 3 years ago. And this is not based on household surveys. So that's kind of like super, super interesting. And then the one last thing I'll show you, actually two, because I have a couple of minutes left and we'll start some Q&A. A couple of things I'll show you. You could actually, we have this job seeking sonar feature, which I was referring to. This is like really, really helpful. I anonymize these companies here, so forgive me for just doing this. I didn't want to kind of like show that, but you could actually look at what percentages of a workforce of a certain company are looking for work or a certain skill. So I just call this company PF. I call this company RS. This is a 90-day trend. You could tell that this trend is going upward in company PF. Today, almost 6% of their workforce is looking for work versus this company, only 2%. This is really important because you could see if you could potentially have flight risk. You could do this for gender, you could do this diversity, you could do this for skills, et cetera, et cetera. This is a very useful tool to see if there's anything going on that's kind of like beneath the surface. And also, this is a very useful tool for recruiting. Clearly, you want to go into a market where there's more people looking for work if you're looking to fill jobs. You don't want to be recruiting in a market where less and less people are looking for work. This is the kind of usefulness that you have out of a feature like this. So I'm looking at time. It's 3:25. I'm going to pause. I don't know if there's time for Q&A, Al, or do we want to end? Let me know. How do you want to do this?
Here, I'll ask a couple questions. First off, fantastic. Thanks for sharing. I mean, I'm just inspired by what you're able to do with your tool. I actually have seen it mature over the years, and even over the past 18 months, it's impressive. And
it's so cool when you show it real time, right, Al? We take it out of the PowerPoint a year and a half ago on stage, and you're like, holy crap, this actually works.
Yeah, it's working. And so what I really like too is that you identified those personas or key users, because it makes it palatable. So my pointed question before I ask you to share how people can learn more about you and what you have planned is that going fast forward, given the pandemic, we're obviously entering a new year. Many organizations are formulating their talent strategies, are going to be allocating their budgets. Talent market analytics arguably is so new that, okay, do we really need this? Yeah. But both you and I would say, hell yeah. But to your point in reality, how are you answering that question right now? If you're going up we're not next to each other. I was about to say going up in an elevator with a CHRO. It's a bad example. But like, what's your quick elevator pitch on, hey, this is why this type of solution is critical for you right now?
Yeah, I think people want to pay fair wages. And I think people want to serve underserved markets.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm altruistic, forgive me, but I think people want to do this. And it's genuine. And, everybody starts at a different place, Al. But I think, like, if people have desire to hire the right talent in the right locations and pay them fair wages, they need tools like this. We have one client, I won't mention their name. They're going to hire 100,000 people. Okay, you can understand the industry they're in, right? They're not hiring, engineers. Let's just put it that way. So they're going to hire 100,000 people. And the head of compensation said, if we screw this up by 25 cents an hour, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the ROI for them is very, very simple. If we can open up a facility in town A and have a disproportionate availability to talent, where if we pay them 25 cents less, and that's still 25 cents above market, correct? So we're
Mhm.
paying them a good wage for that market, yet the company could also have some economic benefit. We're putting people to work and we're saving hundreds of millions of dollars at the same time. This is like a very real thing. I'm
Yeah.
just being honest. It's like
Yeah.
we want to philosophize about it, but I think getting the right pay in the right market at the right labor and ensuring, like, from a D&I perspective, that, for example, if you want to hire Latino workers and you're in Des Moines, Iowa, we'll hire them in Santa Fe because today they could work from anywhere. So I think, like, if you have this kind of value system in your company, this product is important. But if you're not ready as an organization to have these conversations, there's no shame in that. That's honest. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No,
Maybe
it makes
next year
perfect
you're
sense.
ready. But
Yeah.
I think the companies that are ready to have those conversations, conversely, Al, are seeking tools like this. Does that
Right.
make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and I actually love it. And I was just thinking, like, all right, that was the One World Trade Center elevator that we just went up.
Yeah, it was huge. Well, it's snowing outside. I got snowshoes on. It takes me a while.
No, hey, your passion shines through. And again, I mean, congratulations on all you've accomplished. I mean, I think going into 2021, this space is ripe for significant growth, and as well it should be. As I started off the day, it's a bigger part of what we have called people analytics. So again, congratulations.
I
Wish
think
you
we're
continue.
a niche in that space for sure, but it's a fast growing niche. That's how I would
Absolutely.
say.
Absolutely. All right, Michael, you stay warm up there. Good luck with the snow. Hope your heater gets installed properly. And
Thank you so much. Be well. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers. Bye.
bye.